The Chicago Education Watch with Dr. Barnett.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chicago Education Watch. I am Dr. Barnett. Before we begin, I want to make a brief disclosure. I am currently a candidate for the Chicago Board of Education School Board. I am representing District 9B. My candidacy remains subject to a pending challenge, and I will discuss that process in a future episode. However, today's discussion is focused on public information, public policy, and the budget challenges currently facing Chicago public schools. Chicago Education Watch was created to help families, educators, students, and community members better understand the decisions that shape our schools. My goal is not, of course, to tell you what to think. My goal is to help explain what is happening, why it matters, and what questions we should all be asking. Recently, however, it has been reported that CPS has begun holding community engagement sessions as district leaders, preparing to address a projected budget shortfall of approximately $732 million. Community members are being invited to learn more about the budget process and provide feedback before final decisions are made. Now, when many people hear that phrase budget deficit, they immediately think like this is a crisis. They think that the district is out of money or on the verge of even collapse. But before we debate solutions, I think it is important that we understand exactly what a budget deficit is, where CPS gets its money, where that money goes, and why this conversation matters to every family, educator, taxpayer, and student in the city of Chicago. Before we begin, I want to read just a little short portion of CEO Macquillan King's May budget. She starts to address how they're going to move forward with the budget for the upcoming school year. So I am going to share my screen and read just a portion of that. This is right on CPS website, and the CEO of CPS addresses this on May 12th, the beginning the budget process for next school year, as she addressed families, colleagues, and supporters. So I want to focus on our current reality. She writes, like last year, CPS is facing a major budget deficit. This is due to several factors. Federal and state funding has not kept up with our student needs. In fact, CPS is only funded at 73% of what the state of Illinois considers adequate. CPS is facing higher costs in several key areas, including maintenance for our aging facilities, labor contracts, employee pensions, and paying off the district's existing debt burden. The costs associated with educating our highest needs student population continues to grow. We must also grapple with the fact that since 2019, CPS has added nearly 10,000 staff positions. However, she states that while the enrollment has also declined by 45,000 students over the same period. These staff members have been crucial in helping our students recover from the pandemic. But without federal pandemic aid to fund these positions, it has become extremely difficult to maintain the status quo. That was her address for May. So Whether you agree or disagree with the CPS leadership, I believe it is important that we understand how district leaders are framing the issue before we begin evaluating potential solutions. So let's start with the basics. So, like, what is a budget deficit? A budget deficit occurs when an organization expects its expenses to exceed its revenues. In simple terms, CPS expects to spend more money than it expects to receive during the upcoming fiscal year. And we can all relate to that because some of us, some of us do spend more than we get in a year. So the projected gap is approximately $732 million. So now, when people hear that number, they often assume that CPS is running out of money or facing immediate bankruptcy. That is not what a budget deficit means. The question is not whether CPS has money today. The question is whether CPS has enough reoccurring revenue to support all of its planned spending moving forward. That's a very different conversation. So, how large is the CPS budget? The total CPS budget is somewhere around approximately 10 billion. That means that the projected deficit represents roughly 7% of the overall budget. 7% is significant, but it also means that approximately 93% of the budget is currently supported by existing revenues. Understanding that context matters. Now, let's talk about where CPS gets its money. Many people assume that CPS is funded entirely through property taxes. That's not true, and that's not the case. CPS receives funding from several major resources, like your local property taxes, state funding through Illinois evidence based funding formula, federal funding, grants, and miscellaneous revenues and fees. The challenge is that some funding sources are stable while others are temporarily, like the COVID funding was temporary. Over the last several years, federal COVID relief funding provided billions of dollars to school districts across the country. Well, we're out of COVID, um, and that money is no longer available. Many districts use those funds to support staffing, academic recovery, technology initiatives, tutoring, mental health services, and operational needs. I mean, they really used it in the schools. Those federal funds have, like I said, they have now expired. One of the major questions facing CPS is how to maintain services that were supposed to be, that were supported by temporary funding sources like COVID. So that was a big, large portion of their budget for a few years. So now let's discuss the question many people ask: where does the money go? People often say, why doesn't CPS just simply cut spending? To answer that question, we need to understand what CPS actually spends money on. So, the largest portion of the budget is, do you know? It is budget, it is the personnel. So, this includes teachers, your principals, assistant principals, counselors, social workers, nurses, clerks, security personnel, custodians, central office staff, and the benefits associated with those positions. So that's a lot, that's a big portion. Depending on the year, salary and benefits can represent approximately about two-thirds of the total expenditures. Now, that means when people discuss budget cuts, they are often discussing positions and services, not like office supplies or anything like that, paper and pencil and staples. The next major expense is the CPS pensions. CPS contributes hundreds of millions of dollars annually towards retirement obligations. Unlike many districts throughout Illinois, CPS carries significant pensions responsibility that place additional pressure on the budget. Another major category is facilities and operations. Chicago Public School operates hundreds of buildings across the city. Those buildings require electricity, water, heating, cooling, repairs, custodial services, and security systems and infrastructure improvements, such as our homes do. Not to that extent, but our homes need repairs if you have a home. Many of these buildings are decades old, making maintenance costs substantial. Transportation is another expense. This includes special education transportation, bus service, transportation contracts, and routing systems. Then you have your instructional materials and programs, which include curriculum, technology. Everything is, technology comes with some form of software with technology. Then you have the software licensing, instructional resources. Then teachers have to be trained on the curriculum. So that's professional development, student support programs, library resources, and assessment systems. Every year, students are taking and have to prepare for state assessments. Many people are surprised to learn that instructional materials often represent a much smaller portion of the budget than personnel costs. Remember, personnel cost is the largest cost. Finally, CPS also has debt obligations. Like many organizations, CPS has borrowed money over time. So, what does that mean? These debt payments must continue regardless of enrollment, change, or budget pressures. So, I'm going to stop there. And so, I have a chart that I would like to share. And this is basically just, it's not anything from CPS. This is something that I've created just to show kind of a rough breakdown. It's not exact. This is not from CPS, of course. And this is just giving you how that may look. So when we take a look at this, sorry, that was the wrong one. When we take a look at this, it just is color coded. So, as I was saying, the salary and benefits are the larger portion. And then you might have your debt services, your facilities and operation, and your instructional materials color coded in here. But just wanted to provide a visual representation of how it may look. Okay. So, why is CPS facing a deficit? There are several reasons. Potentially, federal relief funds have expired, like those COVID funds. Labor costs continue to rise. Everything is on a rise. Pension obligations remain significant. Inflation has increased the cost of utilities, transportation, maintenance, supplies, and services. As we know, inflation is high, and once inflation is high, everything else is going to go up with that. And some analysis argue that CPS faces a structural deficit, meaning reoccurring expenses continue to grow faster than reoccurring revenues. So the buildings are old. So if they, the breakdown of those buildings may be growing faster than the money is coming in to repair those. This is one of the most important questions the board must address. So, what choices does the board have? Some of those options could potentially be, not for certain, because this is just overview and analysis. This is nothing from what CPS has. Option one is reducing spending. That could include position reductions, program reductions, administrative restructuring, or operational efficiencies. The challenge is determining which reductions have the least impact on students. Option two is increasing revenue. That can include an additional state funding, federal grants, city support, or other revenue services. The challenge is that many of those decisions are outside of the direct control of the board. So they have to go and advocate to the state for more money, which I think has been done or is in the process, that they are working on that. Option three is using reserves or temporary funding sources. That concern is whether those solutions are sustainable. And most likely, the final solution will involve some combination of spending reduction, revenue increases, and operational adjustments. So, a combination of those options. As residents follow the June board meeting, I encourage everyone to listen carefully for answers to a few important questions, such as how much of the deficit is temporary versus structural? Which expenditures are legally required? What is actually required opposed to not being required? Which proposed reductions directly affect the classrooms? Which reductions affect administration? What assumptions are being made about future state funding? What is the long-term plan beyond this budget school year? And how will these decisions impact students, teachers, and families? So before I close, I want to share my perspective as a candidate for the Chicago Board of Education. I know that this is a hot topic, and candidates will be asked this question about the budget deficit and school funding. So one of the reasons I created Chicago Education Watch is because I believe the public deserves access to information that is understandable, transparent, and grounded in facts. As a candidate, I believe that this conversation requires honesty. I do not believe we can simply cut our way out of this problem. We didn't get here overnight, and it's certainly not going to be solved overnight. I also do not believe we can simply assume that additional funding alone will solve every challenge facing Chicago public schools. The reality is that taxpayers deserve transparency, educators deserve stability, and students deserve a system that is financially stable and sustainable. When I review any budget, I ask these three questions. First, how does this decision impact students? Second, is this spending sustainable over the long term? And third, how will we measure whether this investment actually improve outcomes? And that's important because we don't want to continue to do the same thing over and over again and make the same spending um, errors that was made in the past or in previous years. I believe classroom instruction should remain the priority. I believe student support services matter. And I believe taxpayer deserves accountability. And I believe board members have a responsibility to ask difficult questions about spending priorities, enrollment trends, staffing models, academic outcomes, and long term financial planning. The goal is not simply balancing a budget, the goal is ensuring that every dollar contributes to student success. One thing I do want to commend CPS for is creating opportunities for communities to be engaged. Uh, the district is currently hosting community budget roundtables and engagement sessions throughout the city. So I want to stop there and also share my screen with those dates, some of those dates. They are again on the website under the budget 2020-27. And the first one is actually coming up this on Tuesday, June 23rd at the Weston House College Prep High School at 3223 West Franklin Boulevard, 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then as you can see here, there is a whole list of other engagement community roundtable discussions for the community. Okay, so I encourage you to participate. I strongly
The Chicago Education.
Let's stop that. I strongly encourage parents and educators, students and community members to participate. This is the only way you stay engaged, whether you agree with the district leadership or not. These decisions affect every school community in Chicago. Information regarding the 2027 budget, just stay engaged and continue to ask questions. This is an opportunity to ask, give your feedback, and like I said, to ask questions and make your voice heard. Before we go, I'd like to hear from you. So if CPS must address a $732 million deficit, what should be the highest priority? After you have taken time to listen to this podcast and research some more and continue those to go to one of the roundtable that they will have in the upcoming weeks, what should be the highest priority? Okay, should it be protect classroom staffing, protect student support services, reduce administrative spending, seek additional state funding, or focus on long-term financial reforms? All of those really have to be addressed, but what should be the priority? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. And lastly, budgets are not just simply financial documents. Budgets are statements of priorities. Every budget reflects choices. Every budget reflects value. Every budget tells a story about what an organization believes is most important. So I want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Chicago Educational Watch. Until next time, thank you.
The Chicago